Welcome back to Old Coins News. Today we are going to reveal the legendary Kennedy half dollar, an iconic coin that carries history, honor, and collector value all in one. Is this half dollar just an ordinary coin, or a hidden treasure for collectors? So let's get started and discover the powerful story of this Royal American coin. The 1980 half dollar is officially known as the Kennedy half dollar, a continuation of one of the most recognized modern American coin series. This coin was struck in 1980 at the Denver Mint, as indicated by the small D mint mark located on the obverse front of the coin, just below President Kennedy's portrait and above the date. The inscriptions you mentioned, United States of America, E pluribus unum, liberty, and In God We Trust, are all standard features of this iconic half-dollar design. Although millions were produced, the 1980 half dollar remains an important collectible piece in modern U.S. coinage. Numismatics and holds both historical and sentimental value. The Kennedy half dollar series was first introduced in 1964, shortly after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963. The coin was created to honor his legacy and quickly replaced the Franklin half dollar. The public response was overwhelming, and the 1964 coins were heavily hoarded as keepsakes. By 1980, the coin had already undergone composition changes due to rising silver prices. Unlike the original 1964 version, which was struck in 90% silver, the 1980 half dollar was produced in a copper-nickel clad composition. The composition of the 1980 Kennedy half dollar consists of outer layers made of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This clad structure gives the coin a silvery appearance while keeping production costs lower than silver coins. The coin weighs 11.34 grams, has a diameter of 30.61 millimeters. These specifications had been standard since 1971, when the half dollar transitioned fully to base metal composition after the temporary 40% silver issues of 1965 through 1970. On the obverse side of the 1980 half dollar, the left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy dominates the design. This portrait was created by chief engraver Gilroy Roberts. Kennedy's hair is finely detailed, and his confident expression symbolizes leadership and hope. Above his head is the word liberty, while the national motto, In God We Trust, appears below his chin, split into two parts. The date 1980 is prominently displayed at the bottom, with the D mint mark just above it. The design is both elegant and bold, representing a modern style compared to earlier classical coin portraits. The reverse side of the coin features the presidential seal, adapted for coinage by engraver Frank Gasparow. At the center is a heraldic eagle with wings spread wide. The eagle holds an olive branch in its right talon, symbolizing peace, and a bundle of arrows in its left talon, representing military strength and readiness. Above the eagle's head is a cluster of stars surrounded by rays. Encircling the design are the inscriptions United States of America at the top and half dollar at the bottom. The motto E pluribus unum appears on a banner above the eagle's head. This powerful reverse design reflects American ideals of unity and strength. In terms of mintage, the 1980 Kennedy half dollar had a production of over 33 million coins at the Denver Mint. While this number is not extremely low, it is also not among the highest in the series. However, by 1980, half dollars were no longer widely used in daily commerce. Most were distributed directly into Federal Reserve vaults rather than circulating heavily among the public. As a result, many examples remain in relatively good condition today. The historical context of 1980 is also interesting. The United States was experiencing economic challenges, including high inflation and energy concerns. President Jimmy Carter was in office during this time. Although the half dollar did not play a major role in daily transactions, it remained an important part of U.S. coinage tradition. The continued production of the Kennedy half dollar symbolized the enduring respect for President Kennedy's legacy. Collectors generally classify the 1980 half dollar as a common date coin. In circulated condition, it typically holds face value. In uncirculated condition, mint state, it can command a modest premium, especially if it shows strong luster and minimal contact marks. Coins graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services may sell for higher prices, particularly if they display exceptional eye appeal. However, it is not considered rare. One interesting aspect of the Kennedy half-dollar series is the role it plays in modern collecting. Many collectors aim to complete a full date and mint set. The 1980D is an essential part of that collection. It represents the continuation of a design that has lasted more than half a century. The fact that the series is still being produced today highlights its importance in American numismatic history. The edge of the coin is reeded, containing 150 reeds. This feature originally served as a security measure in earlier silver coins to prevent shaving or clipping of precious metal. Even though the 1980D half-dollar is not silver, the reeded edge remains a standard design feature. Another notable factor is the coin's metal appearance. Because it is copper-nickel clad, the edge reveals a thin copper stripe when viewed from the side. This stripe distinguishes it from earlier silver issues, which would have appeared solid silver in color along the edge. In terms of investment value, the 1980D Kennedy half-dollar is not generally seen as a high-value investment coin. However, it is popular among beginners and casual collectors because it is affordable and easy to find in mint condition. Rolls of uncirculated 1980D half-dollars are sometimes available from coin dealers at reasonable prices. The design itself has become iconic in American culture. The portrait of President Kennedy remains one of the most recognizable images on U.S. currency. The combination of patriotic inscriptions, liberty, in God we trust, and e pluribus unum, reflects the foundational principles of the United States. These Latin and English mottos emphasize unity, faith, and freedom. From a technical standpoint, the 1980D half-dollar was struck using high-speed coin presses, typical of late 20th century minting technology. Quality control standards at the Denver Mint ensured consistent strikes, although some coins may show minor strike weakness in the hair details or eagle feathers. In conclusion, the 1980D Kennedy half-dollar may not be rare or highly valuable in monetary terms, but it carries significant historical and symbolic importance. As part of the long-running Kennedy series, it honors the memory of President John F. Kennedy and reflects American ideals of unity and strength. With its copper-nickel composition, classic obverse portrait by Gilroy Roberts, and bold reverse design by Frank Gasparow, the 1980D half-dollar remains a respected and collectible piece of United States coinage history. The 1974 half-dollar is part of the long-running and historically significant Kennedy half-dollar series, one of the most recognized modern coin designs in United States history. The inscriptions you mentioned, United States of America, E pluribus unum, half-dollar, liberty, and in God we trust, are all featured on this coin, reflecting the patriotic and national identity of American coinage. Although the 1974 half-dollar is not considered rare, it remains an important collectible and historical piece, especially for numismatists who build complete Kennedy half-dollar sets. The Kennedy half-dollar was first introduced in 1964, shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963. The American public deeply admired President Kennedy, and Congress quickly approved the creation of a commemorative coin in his honor. The new design replaced the Franklin half-dollar, which had been minted from 1948 through 1963. The first Kennedy half-dollars were struck in 90% silver in 1964. However, due to rising silver prices and heavy public hoarding, the composition was changed beginning in 1965. By 1974, the half-dollar was being produced in a copper-nickel-clad composition. The 1974 Kennedy half-dollar contains outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a core of pure copper. The coin weighs 11.34 grams, has a diameter of 30.61 millimeters, and features a reeded edge. The edge consists of 150 reeds, a design element historically used to prevent clipping of precious metal coins. Although the 1974 coin contains no silver, the reeded edge remains a traditional and secure feature of United States coinage. The obverse or front of the 1974 half-dollar features the left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy. This portrait was designed by Chief Engraver Gilroy Roberts, and it is based on a medal he had previously prepared of President Kennedy. Kennedy's strong profile, neatly combed hair, and dignified expression symbolize leadership, hope, and national pride. The word liberty is inscribed along the top edge of the coin. Below Kennedy's neck appears the national motto, "In God We Trust," split into two parts. The date 1974 is positioned at the bottom center. If minted in Philadelphia in 1974, the coin carries no mint mark, as was customary at that time. Coins struck at the Denver Mint bear a small D mint mark above the date. The reverse back of the 1974 half-dollar was designed by engraver Frank Gasparro. It features a modified version of the presidential seal. At the center is a heraldic eagle, with its wings spread wide. The eagle holds an olive branch in its right talon, symbolizing peace, and a bundle of arrows in its left talon, symbolizing military strength and readiness to defend the nation. Above the eagle's head appears a cluster of stars surrounded by rays. A banner inscribed with E pluribus unum arches above the eagle, representing the Latin phrase meaning "out of many one." Around the outer rim are the inscriptions "United States of America" at the top and half-dollar at the bottom. The reverse design is bold, patriotic, and rich in symbolism. The year 1974 was an important and turbulent time in American history. The United States was dealing with economic challenges, inflation, and political tension. President Richard Nixon resigned from office in August 1974 due to the Watergate scandal, making him the first U.S. president to resign. Although the half-dollar coin itself did not directly reflect political events, it circulated during a year of historic transition. This context adds historical depth to the 1974 Kennedy half-dollar. In terms of mintage, the 1974 half-dollar was struck in large quantities. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 201 million coins, while the Denver Mint produced over 79 million coins. Because of this high mintage, the 1974 half-dollar is generally considered a common date in the series. Most examples found today are worth face value in circulated condition. However, uncirculated coins with strong luster and minimal contact marks may carry a small premium. By the early 1970s, half-dollars were no longer widely used in everyday transactions. Many Americans preferred smaller denominations such as quarters and dollar bills. As a result, large numbers of half-dollars were stored in bank vaults rather than heavily circulated. This is why many 1974 half-dollars can still be found in relatively good condition today. Collectors often search for high-grade examples graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services. In exceptional condition, particularly with strong strikes and minimal blemishes, the 1974 half-dollar may achieve higher collector value. Additionally, proof versions were struck at the San Francisco Mint for collectors, featuring mirror-like fields and frosted design elements. Another interesting detail about the 1974 Kennedy half-dollar is its copper core, which can be seen as a thin brownish stripe along the coin's edge. This distinguishes it from the earlier 1964 silver version, which appears solid silver, in color, on the edge. The change in composition reflects broader economic trends of the late 1960s and early 1970s, when rising silver prices made precious metal coinage impractical for circulation. The Kennedy half-dollar series remains one of the longest-running modern coin series in the United States. Despite its limited use in commerce, the coin continues to be produced annually, primarily for collectors. The 1974 issue represents the standard design that defined the series throughout the 1970s and beyond. From an artistic perspective, the Kennedy portrait is admired for its clean lines and realistic detail. The reverse eagle design is symmetrical and powerful, capturing the strength and unity of the nation. Together, the obverse and reverse create a coin that balances elegance with patriotic symbolism. In conclusion, the 1974 Kennedy half-dollar is not rare, but it is historically meaningful and highly collectible within its series. With its copper nickel-clad composition, classic portrait by Gilroy Roberts, and patriotic reverse by Frank Gasparro, it stands as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy and the enduring ideals of the United States. Whether found in circulation, preserved in mint sets, or displayed in a coin album, the 1974 half-dollar continues to hold significance for collectors and history enthusiasts alike. The 1971 half dollar is officially known as the Kennedy half dollar, an important issue in modern United States coinage history. The inscriptions you mentioned, United States of America, E pluribus unum, half dollar, liberty, and in God we trust, are all part of the coin's classic design. The year 1971 marked a major transition for this series, because it was the first year the Kennedy half dollar was struck entirely in copper-nickel clad for regular circulation, with no silver content in standard business strikes. The Kennedy half dollar series began in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy, following his tragic assassination in November 1963. The coin replaced the Franklin half dollar, which had featured Benjamin Franklin. The first 1964 Kennedy half dollars were struck in 90% silver and were immediately hoarded by the public as keepsakes. From 1965 to 1970, the coin was produced with a reduced silver content of 40%. However, due to rising silver prices and economic pressures, 1971 marked the beginning of the fully clad composition for circulation coins. The 1971 Kennedy half dollar is composed of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a core of pure copper. The coin weighs 11.34 grams and measures 30.61 millimeters in diameter. It features a reeded edge containing 150 reeds, a traditional design element originally intended to prevent the clipping of precious metal from coin edges. When viewed from the side, the copper core appears as a thin brown stripe along the edge, clearly distinguishing it from earlier silver issues. The obverse of the 1971 half dollar displays the left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy. This design was created by Chief Engraver Gilroy Roberts and is based on a medal he had previously prepared of Kennedy. The portrait captures Kennedy's youthful appearance, neatly styled hair, and calm yet determined expression. The word "Liberty" arcs around the top of the coin. Below Kennedy's neck appears the inscription, "In God We Trust," split into two sections. The date 1971 is positioned at the bottom. Coins minted in Philadelphia in 1971 carry no mint mark, while those struck at the Denver Mint bear a small D mint mark above the date. The reverse design of the 1971 Kennedy half dollar was created by engraver Frank Gasparow. It features a modified version of the presidential seal. At the center is a heraldic eagle with wings spread wide. In its right talon, the eagle holds an olive branch symbolizing peace. In its left talon, it holds a bundle of arrows symbolizing military strength. Above the eagle's head appears a cluster of stars surrounded by rays. A banner inscribed with E pluribus unum stretches above the eagle. Around the outer rim are the inscriptions United States of America at the top and half dollar at the bottom. This reverse design is bold, symmetrical, and rich in patriotic symbolism. The year 1971 was historically significant in the United States. President Richard Nixon was in office, and the country was experiencing economic changes, including the end of the gold standard under the Bretton Woods system. Inflation and metal prices were rising, which contributed to the decision to eliminate silver entirely from circulating half dollars. The transition to copper-nickel clad composition in 1971 reflected broader economic realities and the need to control minting costs. In terms of mintage, the 1971 Kennedy half dollar was struck in large numbers. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 155 million coins, and the Denver Mint produced over 302 million coins. These high mintages make the 1971 issue a common date in the series. Most circulated examples are worth face value. However, uncirculated coins in high mint state grades, MS65 or above, may carry modest premiums, particularly if they display strong luster and minimal contact marks. In addition to regular circulation strikes, special 40% silver proof and uncirculated collector versions were produced in 1971 at the San Francisco Mint. These were sold directly to collectors and are distinct from the copper-nickel circulation coins. The proof coins feature mirror-like surfaces and frosted details, making them visually striking. Although the half dollar was once widely used in commerce, by 1971 it had largely fallen out of everyday circulation. Americans increasingly preferred quarters and paper currency. As a result, Many 1971 half dollars were stored in bank vaults, rather than heavily circulated. This explains why many examples today can still be found in relatively good condition. From a collector's perspective, the 1971 Kennedy half dollar is significant because it represents the beginning of the modern clad era for the series. It marks the end of silver content in regular circulation strikes and symbolizes a new chapter in U.S. coinage history. Collectors assembling complete Kennedy half dollar sets consider the 1971 issue an essential part of the timeline. Artistically, the coin combines a dignified presidential portrait with a powerful national emblem. The obverse highlights Kennedy's leadership and legacy, while the reverse emphasizes unity, peace, and strength. The inscriptions, Liberty, In God We Trust, and E Pluribus Unum, reflect the core values and guiding principles of the United States. In conclusion, the 1971 Kennedy half dollar is not rare, but it holds great historical and numismatic importance. As the first fully copper-nickel clad issue of the series for circulation, it represents a major shift in American coinage. With its iconic design by Gilroy Roberts and Frank Gasparro, patriotic inscriptions, and connection to President John F. Kennedy's enduring legacy, the 1971 half dollar remains a meaningful and collectible piece of United States history. The 1997 D half dollar is officially known as the Kennedy half dollar, a modern issue in one of the longest-running coin series in United States history. The inscriptions you mentioned, United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, half dollar, Liberty, and In God We Trust, are all featured prominently on this coin. Although the 1997 D half dollar is not rare in terms of mintage, it represents an important continuation of the Kennedy series and remains a key collectible for numismatists who build date and mint collections of modern U.S. coinage. The Kennedy half dollar series began in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy following his assassination in November 1963. The coin was introduced only months later due to strong public demand to honor his legacy. It replaced the Franklin half dollar, which had previously featured Benjamin Franklin. Over time, the series underwent changes in metal composition, minting technology, and circulation patterns, but the overall design remained largely unchanged. By 1997, the Kennedy half dollar had been in production for over 3 decades. The 1997 D half dollar was struck at the Denver Mint, as indicated by the D mint mark located on the obverse, just to the right of Kennedy's portrait and above the date. The coin is composed of a copper-nickel clad structure, consisting of outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a core of pure copper. It weighs 11.34 grams and has a diameter of 30.61 millimeters. The edge is reeded, containing 150 reeds, which is a traditional feature inherited from earlier silver coinage. The obverse of the 1997 D Kennedy half dollar features the left-facing portrait as President John F. Kennedy. This design was originally created by chief engraver Gilroy Roberts. Kennedy's profile is detailed and dignified, with carefully sculpted hair and a strong jawline that conveys leadership and confidence. The word Liberty arcs along the top of the coin. Below Kennedy's chin appears the national motto, In God We Trust, divided into 2 segments. The date 1997 is placed at the bottom center, with the D mint mark nearby. The reverse of the 1997 D half dollar was designed by engraver Frank Gasparro. It features a modified version of the presidential seal of the United States. At the center is a heraldic eagle with its wings spread wide. In its right talon, the eagle holds an olive branch symbolizing peace. In its left talon, it grasps a bundle of arrows representing military strength and readiness. Above the eagle's head is a cluster of stars surrounded by rays of light. A banner with the inscription E Pluribus Unum stretches above the eagle. Around the rim are the words United States of America at the top and half dollar at the bottom. By 1997, the half dollar was no longer widely used in everyday transactions. Most Americans preferred quarters and paper currency, and as a result, the half dollar had largely disappeared from circulation. The majority of 1997 D half dollars were distributed primarily for collectors rather than for general commerce. This reduced circulation contributed to the availability of many coins in uncirculated condition today. The mintage of the 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar was significantly lower than earlier decades when hundreds of millions were produced annually. In 1997, the Denver Mint struck just over 19 million coins for circulation. While this is not extremely rare, it is modest compared to earlier issues of the 1970s. As a result, the 1997 D half-dollar is somewhat scarcer in circulation than older dates, though still considered common among collectors. From a grading perspective, circulated examples of the 1997 D half-dollar typically hold face value. However, uncirculated coins graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services may command a small premium. Coins with exceptional luster, strong strikes, and minimal contact marks are more desirable. Collectors often seek high-grade examples to complete modern registry sets. The edge of the 1997 D half-dollar reveals a thin copper stripe when viewed from the side. This stripe is characteristic of copper-nickel-clad coinage and distinguishes it from the earlier 1964 90% silver issues, or the 40% silver coins, produced between 1965 and 1970. The clad composition was adopted to reduce minting costs and ensure durability in circulation. The year 1997 itself was a time of relative economic stability in the United States, during the presidency of Bill Clinton. Although the half-dollar was not a central part of daily commerce, its continued production reflected the United States Mint's commitment to maintaining a complete range of denominations. The Kennedy half-dollar remained an enduring tribute to President Kennedy's legacy and ideals. Artistically, the Kennedy half-dollar design is considered one of the most successful modern coin portraits. The clean lines and balanced composition make it visually appealing. The reverse design, with its powerful eagle and patriotic symbolism, reinforces themes of unity, strength, and national identity. The Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, emphasizes the unity of the states under a single nation. In the context of modern numismatics, the 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar represents the late 20th century phase of the series. It stands as a reminder that even coins no longer widely used in commerce continue to carry historical and symbolic significance. Many collectors appreciate the affordability of modern Kennedy half-dollars, making them accessible entry points into coin collecting. In conclusion, the 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar is a copper-nickel-clad coin struck at the Denver Mint, featuring the enduring portrait of President John F. Kennedy on the obverse and a modified presidential seal on the reverse. While not rare, it is an essential piece of the Kennedy series and a meaningful representation of American history and values. Its patriotic inscriptions, durable composition, and historical continuity make it a respected and collectible coin within United States numismatics.